Okay, Assalamu alaikum, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So basically, I am going to go into a little bit of the introduction today and go into the characters, the personalities that are basically key to the incident, and it will give the listeners a brief overview of who's who. And I'm going to read directly from this book. Okay. In presenting the paragons of justice, we invite you to consider Hussein not simply as a figure enshrined in the annals of history, but to move with him in reality. Human beings have the distinguishing property of the free will, and with it, the responsibility to choose the path of truth. When you witness an injustice occurring, or when your conscience presents you with a moral dilemma, not choosing or so-called neutrality only amounts to strengthening the forces of aggression and falsehood. This is an invitation to awaken your conscience. The Epic of Karbala, Who's Who? Some describe the event that took place in Karbala as a massacre due to Hussein's outnumbered army of 72 men against Yazid's army of 30,000. However, to do justice to the valor and faith shown by Hussein and his followers at Karbala, this event is better described as the struggle of the oppressed against the oppressor. Highlighted below is a selection of key individuals who played important roles in the historical event that led to the Battle of Karbala. Hussein, son of Ali, the king of martyrs, was the grandson of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, through his daughter Fatima and his son-in-law and cousin Ali ibn Abu Talib. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, expressed his love for Hussein many times. Hussein was martyred on the 10th of Muharram in the year 61 after the migration, or 680 CE, a day known as Ashura. For his refusal to pledge his allegiance to the Caliph Yazid, he was forced to leave his home with his family and friends and was led to a desert called Karbala, where he, along with his companions and many of his family members, were brutally massacred. Hussein's devout standpoint against falsehood and commitment in his stance until the end of his ephemeral life taught every future human being the lesson of steadfastness. Now we're moving on to Yazid, the oppressor. He was the son of Muawiyah and was born in 21 after the migration, or AH Hijri, 642 CE, and inherited the caliphate from his father, who was Muawiyah. In his short ruling of 3 years, he explicitly contravened the laws of Islam to the extent that historians have reported him as a drunkard amidst reports of bribery and threats. Yazid unjustly demanded the Prophet's grandsons, Hussein, to pledge allegiance to him to ensure his credibility. In addition to slaying Hussein and his followers at Karbala, he is also responsible for commanding the pillage of Medina, where he ordered the slaughtering of close to 10,000 Muslims, followed by an attack which demolished the Kaaba, the most sacred place of pilgrimage to the Muslims. Now we're going on to Muslim bin Aqil, the loyal messenger. He was Hussein's cousin, After Hussein had received numerous letters from the people of Kufa inviting him to migrate there from Medina, Muslim was sent ahead as an envoy to Kufa to see if the people could be trusted to stand by their invitation. He sent word back to Hussein stating that the Kufans were loyal. Later, to his dismay, the Kufans were forced to switch sides due to threats and intimidation from the Kufan ruler, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, who was loyal to Yazid. Muslims' loyalty to Hussein stayed with him until his last breath as he fought against Ubaydullah's soldiers single-handedly. Now we're going on to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, the supporter of oppression. He was the ruler of Kufa. It was by his orders and by the order of his superior Yazid that Hussein was slaughtered in Karbala. He wanted to prevent Hussein from entering Kufa, as he would jeopardize the stability of the city. He ordered the murder of Muslim ibn Aqil, the cousin of Hussein, in Kufa as well. Now we're going on to Hur al-Tamimi, the free man. He was an officer in Yazid's army. Although he was obeying orders when he intercepted Hussein outside of Kufa, meaning the desert of Karbala, where he was technically responsible for stopping the caravan of Imam Hussein to this desert area called Karbala, his conscience led him to think about his actions against the family of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. Prior to the dawn of Ashura, Hur rode over to Hussein's camp. Hur threw himself at Hussein's feet, pleading for his forgiveness. Hussein immediately forgave him. Later, Hur fought for Hussein against the army of Yazid and in doing so, joined the ranks of the martyrs. If humanity is distinguished by freedom of choice, then Hur personifies what it means to be human. Now we're going on to Abbas, son of Ali, the moon of the Hashemites. And he was also called the water bearer for Karbala. Karbala's thirsty. Also a flag bearer. He was the half brother of Hussein and the standard bearer of Karbala. Abbas would never wield his sword unless Hussein would give him permission to do so. In Karbala, Abbas pleaded with Hussein to give him permission to fight. However, Hussein declined his request. Hussein's daughter Sukina made a request to Abbas to gather water for her and the other children to fulfill his request. To fulfill this request, Abbas was granted permission by Hussein. However, Hussein's orders were specified about maintaining peace. Hence, Abbas was killed when he went to the Euphrates River to gather water. His shrine, as with Hussein's, is in Karbala. Sukaina, the thirsty princess. Only 4 years old, she was the youngest and most beloved daughter of Hussein. Her lips were parched and extremely thirsty at Karbala. Sukina was crying for her father after his death. Instead of comforting words, she was slapped by Shimr, who was one of the henchmen of Yazid's army. When the tents were set ablaze, Sukina's dress caught on fire. She was kept in jail with her aunt Zainab, where she died in the remembrance of her father. Her aunt buried her within the confines of the prison. Ali al-Asghar, the martyred baby. He was a 6-month-old infant, son of Hussein. When Hussein was the last survivor and was about to enter the battlefield, he heard Ali al-Asghar crying. Tormented by the pangs of hunger and thirst, the baby's wailing was unbearable to hear. He took the infant out into the battlefield, thinking that the army surely could not deny an innocent baby a few drops of water. As he held Ali al-Asghar in his arms, requesting water, an arrow was shot. An arrow was shot, piercing straight through the baby's neck. Most difficult was the moment when Hussein had to return his baby to the mother Rabab. Both Rabab and Hussein buried their newborn in the land of Karbala. Zainab, the sanctity of Hussein. She was the sister of Hussein. She was taken prisoner after the battle of Karbala by Ubaydullah to Yazid. Despite the attempt to humiliate the household of the Prophet Muhammad, she valiantly conducted herself with dignity and courage. She was a steadfast and outspoken woman who shook and awoke the consciousness in the people. She's credited for keeping the message of Hussein alive even after his death. With this, the true victory of Hussein and the martyrs of Karbala. And that is basically concluding the main characters in the event of Karbala. Of course, there are many more, and if they are brought up, we will go into them. And our next episode will be about day 1 of Karbala.